Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Average Superstar TV. I'm your host, Lauren Lepre. Boom, please hit that subscribe button on YouTube, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon, and iHeartRadio. And this week we are back for round 2 of Roundtable Week, and we are back in underrated horror movies. We got another round of people here. We're going to be giving our top 5, what we feel is underrated films that you guys should definitely all check out. And oddly enough, all these guys are from the Days of the Dead Festival, which takes place around the country. So returning is the great George and Audrey Lane. Welcome back.
Thank you for having us.
Appreciate you having us.
All right. And first time joining the show, Duke. How we doing, buddy?
Good. Yeah, glad to be here, bud.
Sweet. And Angie coming down from Florida, coming us live from Florida. How you doing?
Doing great. Super glad to be here.
All right. So yes, we're just going to be going around the room. These feel free for everybody to comment on the YouTube page when this airs. These are amazing selections. So my big announcement up front, what I didn't tell everybody here is none of us have double selections.
Woo!
Like straight across the board, you are getting 20 films. I will also say up front that I don't think I saw about 80% of these. So this is even good for me. I'm just like, cool, I have a lot of things to watch here. So, and I actually got to obviously do this. This is technically a part 2. I did not repeat the same 5 films from the last podcast. So I got to do 5 more selections. And I think we all had it our own way. We could probably do 40 easy each. But, we all have lives to get back to. All right, so we're going to go around the room, and we're going to start with Angie's here, and we're coming at number 5 for her is Bad Samaritan. So is your selection? You go first. Tell us about this film.
All right, well, I'll be honest. The thing that probably drew me to the theater was David Tennant starring in the movie.
Okay.
And I was the only person in the theater that day. I will say that. So this is probably something that not a lot of people saw. But it's a very classic home invasion type of plot. But it's also kind of an underdog type, where you're trying to root for the underdog, and then you realize that he's not really your underdog. You have the burglar that is using kind of a unique way to get into the home, and then once he gets into the home, he realizes he's stepped into something kind of murky, and he has that moral dilemma. Do I do something about this? Because if I do, I'm breaking the law too. I'm going to get in trouble with this. So it's got that kind of twist there.
That's a cool premise.
Morally making that decision. What am I going to do from here?
Yeah, gotcha. It was a good one.
Go on.
For sure.
And I will confirm that if you're a David Tennant fan, he does a fabulous job in it.
Gotcha. Sweet. Duke, did you happen to see this one?
I have not seen this one, so I'm gonna check it out as soon as I can for sure.
It's a sleeper. It's one of those I found it just scrolling Amazon one day, and I think I noticed that it had the kid from the Umbrella Academy. He's like the only character on that show that I really like. Like I literally watched the 2 seasons for him because he just stole every scene, which up here in the brain, in case we ever do the other podcast, the co-star that steals the show, it's him. So they had a really good chemistry. I mean, he plays such a different role, but it's a sleeper. It's like one of those you're just like, oh, I'm going to watch it. And then you're like, oh, shit, that was really good.
Gotcha. That kid looks like Adam Goldberg. That's what I always thought. That I know you're talking. He looked like a young Adam Goldberg. As soon as I saw him, I was like,
Oh my gosh.
probably his kid for all we know. But all right. So moving on to Audrey's selection at number 5. We kind of put 2 here for 5, but I think I found a loophole here. So I'm just going to call it Dead Silence. And yet Darkness Falls. So I actually, oddly enough, found a poster for.
I love it. I literally could not decide between those two. It's kind of that they came out, I want to say, close to the same time. And of course, you have like Darkness Falls, and that was about the Tooth Fairy, the legend of the Tooth Fairy, and really scary. It wasn't a huge cast, but it was really tight. I mean, it was a really cohesive script, and Chaney Clay, that plays the title role in that, was so good in it. And he was also on FX's the movie about the TV show with the firefighters. Dennis Leary is like the chief.
Oh,
Rescue?
Rescue Me.
Yes.
And so then it made me watch that, and I had no interest in that show. But it was just one of those movies, or you love horror movies. You see a new title. Pretty sure we picked it up from Family Video, which rest in peace, Family Video. I miss you all the time. I do dearly. And it was just one of those movies you're like, oh, this might be scary. And it actually had the scares. It was creepy as shit. And at the same time, Dead Silence also was one of those kind of sleeper horror movies. It came out, I feel like it got around word of mouth.
Yeah, I could. I'm one of them people, and a lot of people just kind of give me a double take. Some people get it, but some people don't. Dead Silence is part of the James Wan universe, and it started with there. In my eyes, and I understand when people say horror movies, especially in the last few years, like with Art the Clown, like we love slashers. But to me, James Wan did more for horror by bringing all that, The Nun and Annabelle and all that. I understand that you don't call them slashers, that's psychedelic, thrillers and evil spirits and The Conjuring. But to me, James Wan is brought the most interesting new movies, at least gave us new characters to get behind. I understand it's not a Jason, a Michael, or a Freddy, but I'm fine with that. And if anything is left in the tank, I'm always worried about, it is spirits, because how the hell do you fight them?
And I agree with you about James Wan. He has really crafted that supernatural, a little bit more sophisticated horror.
And he was able to pull off a lot of his stuff doing PG-13 to kind of open it for other. And I understand the criticism with PG-13, but it also added, it gave an audience to a lot of young kids that maybe their parents, similar to mine, like when I was a kid, if it was rated R, they're like, wait a little bit. But PG-13, they'd let me slide. And those really cut the edge of 13 pretty well. So it was something that I could have digested as a kid, and damn, it was scary. He really brought it.
I would argue maybe Blumhouse, like who could rival what body of work in the last 15 years for horror? I think he's untouchable. All right, Duke, we are going into your number 5, which I love the title of this because it's long. Incident on and off a mountain.
Yeah.
Oh, friend.
It's actually even a little longer than that. So it's Incident on and off a mountain road. It was written for the Masters of Horror series, part of Showtime. It was written by the great Don Coscarelli. I'm a huge Phantasm fan. I love Bubba Hotep. And I'm also really, really into the survival horror genre. I've always liked the Chainsaw in the Woods, the idea that you can fight back if you're good enough and you can make it out. And Incident on and off a mountain road really is, in my opinion, one of the most survivalist of the survival horror genre that could possibly be. You've got Angus Scrimm in one of his last performances before he died. And he does great with it. I mean, if you like Angus Scrimm, you're not going to be disappointed in this one whatsoever. Moonface is the character that, the monster you got to fight against, who is a really great kind of, backwoods creeper. He's got some supernatural stuff, so you never know what he's going to pull out. You've got a young Ethan Embry in this as well, who you remember the series Fear Itself. He also did a lot of great work over there. But basically, I don't want to give any spoilers here, but there's a beautiful twist at the end. But basically, there's a relationship in the film, and Ethan Embry's character, Bruce, is trying to tell his significant other how to fight back if anybody crazy ever tries to get you. And she has to pull out all of these tricks out of her repertoire move to fight against Moonface, and it just is really, really something special, I think, because you had a real heavy hitter with Don Coscarelli, and then a great cast, and it just all comes together. I think it's only about an hour long, but I mean, if you like Wrong Turn, if you like that kind of thing, this is something you got to see, because it really just is, in my opinion, the definition of what survival horror can be. And the only shame I see in it is I wish it could have been longer, and I wish they could have done even more with it, you know. But
is this
really
something?
strong.
Is this something like, I think you said it was for Showtime, so it's Showtime on the rights. So
Yeah, it was in the Masters of Horror collection. So if you remember that coming out, it was I think it might have even been the first one.
So is this something that strictly you only could go to Showtime for, or you think it's like sold on other networks now?
I don't know about networks. I know you can pick it up. Like they literally have it on physical media.
I was trying to.
If you can find yourself a great used shop, you'll probably find an episode of it laying around. And there was also box sets for the Masters of Horror. So I'm sure it's
basically, you're telling the audience at the moment, it looks like box sets, like we don't know which streaming outlets, if it's even on any. We'd have to tell them to look it up.
I would, yeah, and I mean, it would shock me that this series is not somewhere on streaming.
Like it might have been on Shudder when they first came out, because I feel like I saw the compilation of those somewhere, but I just don't remember where.
Man, that's the same here. I was just like, I hadn't even heard of it, and I mean, I've known the series, but I hadn't heard of that one, so that's one to write down so I can end up checking it out.
It's on our list now.
Yeah,
cool. Yeah, mine too. The only thing I could really contribute is I did meet Angus Grimm about a year before he passed, and he was a hell of a sweet guy. Mm-hmm. And I was looking eye to eye with him, not up, and I was like, hey. They lied to me. He's not tall. All right, moving on to George's selection for number 5, which I can tell the audience right now. I actually just rewatched his number selection here on YouTube, so you could go look this up right now. Don't answer the phone. George, all you.
Man, I absolutely love this one. Nicholas Worth. He always plays a great bad guy. He always did back in the 70s and the 80s, everything that he ended up doing. He didn't have any like major roles. Like he wasn't always the major bad guy. He was a henchman in the first Swamp Thing movie. But man, that was a fun movie, you know, kind of circled around the Vietnam vet that goes bad, you know, especially at that time, you know, 70s and 80s. They're worried about the PTSD of Vietnam vets and, you know, losing it on the public, and it kind of really played into that. It was funny too. That's the other thing, is that this movie it's absolutely hilarious. We still, you know, we will reference that film all the time and just laugh.
I have a thing with this film. If I watch this, I have to watch Pieces, which is also free on YouTube.
Oh, nice.
It's like one of them. If I watch one, like I feel like I don't know why I feel they're bonded together, but I have to watch the other. Duke, did you see this one?
I did not see this one. No.
Wow. Okay.
How dare you?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Trying to keep up, I really am.
Duke, you can just put it in on YouTube, because I don't think anyone owns the rights, so I think that's why it's free on YouTube. Someone's just people's pages and stuff. Angie, did you see this one?
Absolutely not, but it sounds great.
It's cool because it's got the psychological part of it. There's a therapist. There's, you know, 2 cops that are just funny. They interact with each other, and it's one of those movies. There's these situations, and you will find yourself repeating these in real life. I mean, there's like 5 or 6 phrases from that movie at different times that will just actually, I've said it in front of you guys many times, you know, just should have said what it was from, but it's just one of those things that's fun. It's when it tries to be too serious, it's still kind of funny, but it's still kind of messed up also. He does make a formidable killer.
And it's not like it's a comedy. It's
no,
not
it's not
all a comedy. It's just still some of the shit's funny.
So my number 5 is not that old of a film. It falls under the horror comedy. People that know this film love it. People that did not see this film need to go and watch it now. I believe it's free on Tubi. Deathgasm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love Deathgasm.
I can't tell you how great this flick is. My friend Josh Goldblum is one of the first people that ever screened this in America, and we got it in Philadelphia like before its big push. And I'm just thought about like, wow, like what a solid film. It looks like any A-list film out there. The whole idea that it's like these two heavy metal guys. One's kind of like the nerdy geek, but he's a metal guy versus this, and his friend's just a pure badass, like pure metalhead to the T. He doesn't care. And the whole idea, this whole premise about like they make a band called Deathgasm, and they actually make a note that summons the devil, but unknowingly, kind of. It was just like, wow. Like I just think this is so. I could go on forever how great this movie is, but it's definitely a horror comedy. Like no buts about it. If you're like looking for like pure horror, this isn't it. But heavy metal and horror go great together, and this film is awesome. Definitely the death scenes are freaking top notch. That's for sure.
Yeah, good blood, good kill scenes, good blood.
A dildo fight. I mean, you see a lot of like interesting stuff in this film. So. Audrey, you're definitely chirping first, so go for it.
What? I'm sorry.
You're chirping first, so you have the floor.
Yeah.
Oh, am I doing 4?
No.
Deathgasm.
I'm so sorry. I've literally been gone like on 2.5 hours of sleep, so I'm in that giddy stage too. Still.
Yeah.
No, I love that movie. I like the dynamic of the kid. Like he's in his metal zone 24/7. You know, he doesn't break from that. He is all metal all the time. He's a statistic fact stater about the music, and I love people like that because you can say anything about any song and they're going to rattle off all the facts about it that they know, but not to be pretentious. It's just because they love it. So I can't think of the main kid's name, but he was, my favorite. I really, really liked him.
Awesome. Duke, your thoughts?
I've only seen a couple cuts out of this film, so I gotta say I liked what I saw of it. I liked the concept, but I just haven't seen enough of it to really get too deep in it.
Add it to your Tubi list, Angie.
I will.
I think what they do the best job at is balancing the fact that it's not a parody, it's not a goofball film. But there is that same comedy. So you can still take it seriously, even though it's a comedy. I think they balance everything really well.
Great wording.
Like you were talking about the special effects and everything. I think that helps with that balance. Because they have other comedies out there and they're just so far over the top and everything's just really cheesy and it's a lot harder to take them seriously.
Gotcha. George?
It's one of my favorites. I loved it. I'm a metalhead through and through, always have been. Missed my hair, but it shaved some years off my age. So I'm glad about I'm happy about that because I'd look much older if I kept it. But that movie spoke a lot to the metalhead in me that just going to a show and just living in the pit and everything was just life was metal and metal was fucking life and it meaning so much to those characters as it means so much to me. It spoke a lot. It was dead up like seeing young me, even though I wasn't into death. I was more into thrash back in the 90s. It's still that felt I really related to each of those characters, for that exact reason. So, hell yeah.
Sweet. We are moving on to number 4s. And coming in at number 4 for Angie is Daybreakers.
Nice.
All you, friend.
So, one of the things about this movie, it came out in 2009. I did not see it in theaters. I stumbled across it a few years later on a Saturday afternoon matinee type thing. And it's such a unique take on vampires, where they've reached. It's supposed to take place in 2019, so I can go ahead and spoil it and say this didn't actually come true. But the vampires had become like 95% of the population, and so they had changed the entire society to cater to vampires being the majority, and of course the 5% of humans left are the food source, and they're looking to find a way to continue that food source because obviously it's dying off. So I think the set design, again, 2019 came and gone. It didn't actually happen, but back before it happened, it was amazing. I mean, to recreate a world where that has to be so that vampires can go to work and live their life and not be out in the sun all day. They did an amazing job with the set design, and the special effects were pretty good. There were a secondary type of vampire. Once you started starving, you became a whole different kind of vampire. They did a great job with that subspecies as well.
Coolness. You know what? I know this has been out a while. I have to bow out and say I didn't see this one and pass the puck to Duke.
I saw it, and I just do not remember a whole lot about it, to be honest with you. I do remember some of the violent action in it, and I appreciated that part of it. But other than that, I'm going to have to check it out again because it's been a while.
I mean, I remember the movie, but it was good when I watched it, but it's not one that I keep returning to. And now I'm like, well, should I give it enough? Like if it's on TV or something, I'd kind of, watch it, but that's not one I would like pull out of my repertoire and go, oh, I'm going to watch this today. So maybe I better revisit that. Just, I might find it might have a new place in my heart.
Audrey, no problem, because we're going to stick with you for your number 4. So coming in at your number 4 is Grabbers.
Grabbers!
Yes. Floor is all yours.
So Grabbers is a really fun kind of sci-fi horror, Irish horror movie. And it's just fun. It's just one of those movies. It kind of puts you in the mind of The Void, but not. It's just kind of like that hometown, everyone knows each other thing, and something's going on. These creatures are attacking, and they don't really know what it is, and they're trying to find a name for it. Then they argue about the name, but it's just one of those really kind of lighthearted, fun movies. It's one I feel like if you have people over and they want to watch something, you might be like, hey, have you ever heard of this movie? Because it's not necessarily something they're going to see all the time. There's nothing lost in translation there. There is a couple of times because of my bad here, I got to put the subtitles on. We've got the thick accents, but it's so funny because the people are just like so real. They just seem so real. Just like if you were in this place that someone like this, we all have that group of people that we know and we can see ourselves in this situation with. And it's either going to work and you're going to kick some ass, or half of them are going to get knocked out out of the game because they're not paying attention or want to, fight back and things like that. So it's like, okay, cut the dead weight. We're going to go over here. You do your thing. But it's just one of those really fun, just kind of like creature movies.
Okay.
I really liked it.
George?
Man, if I got to get drunk to fight some fucking tentacle monsters, I'm in. Man, that was just it's awesome. I loved it. There's not a lot of like cool Irish horror. I mean, I think there's one that outside of the Grabbers, and of course, even whenever they say it, the Grabbers. I think there's The Hollow. Wasn't that the name of it?
So.
It's a story about the changelings, Irish folklore. I like all the different creatures, even though these grabbers aren't a part of Irish folklore, at least to my knowledge. It's really cool. And to add, just have an Irish base in there, it's cool because I don't see a whole lot of films coming out of Ireland, not horror film.
Sweet. Duke, how about your thoughts on this one?
You're never going to believe this. I haven't seen that one either.
And I'm going to double down with Duke and say I've not seen it either. Puck goes to Angie.
I have not seen this, but I'm a big fan of Kraken folklore. So
you'll love it, Angie.
It's something I'm gonna have to check out.
Cool.
Homework for all of you.
So the Lanes hold the title for this film, and we're all out. We have to catch up. All right, Duke, we're jumping into your number 4, and I highly like your selection. I believe this is free on YouTube everywhere. Santa Sleigh, starring Bill Goldberg. Go for it.
I'm a big pro. I love horror movies as well, but I'm a big pro wrestling fan. On top of that, I love Goldberg, and for me, if you're going to do a Christmas horror film, which I am, that's one of my favorite genres. It cannot be a Christmas tree in the background, and you're just hoping to pull it off. This thing better be puking horror and Christmas everywhere, or I'm not going to let you have the genre title for it. And so I love Santa's Sleigh. I love what Goldberg did in this. A 2005 release. The name of the wrestler is slipping me right now. Also an actor from No Holds Barred. Do you remember Zeus?
Zeus, yeah, Tiny Lister or something like
Lister,
that.
Yeah,
he does.
He's in
an amazing.
Heaven. Yeah, he's in heaven right now. But yes.
Yeah, and he does an amazing camo in this. One of the best ones, and I'm not going to repeat the line because I couldn't do it as good as him. But unbelievable as far as I'm concerned. There's a little claymation in it. There's a great story. When Violent Night came out, and I'm not trying to beat up on that film because I enjoyed it too, but everybody's like, "Oh my God, you'll love this." Santa Claus goes around beating some, and I'm like, well, I hate to tell you this, but there's been a film out there before, and they go, no, wait. He's a Viking. I said, no, wait. This has been done. Yeah. And it's going to be hard to beat Bill Goldberg in this arena. You know what I mean? So I very much enjoyed it. You've got about the writer was David Steinman on it. You've got the producer, Brett Ratner. And obviously they've had a little bit of background with this, but the other one was Amelia de Ravine. I might have been messing up her name there, but she went on to be a big deal in Lost and a couple other things like that. So there's a great little cast of good people here, a lot of great character actors in this. And the story, in my opinion, is just bar none. It's one of the better Christmas horror movies. And I'm not big on horror comedy a whole lot, but this one really punches hard for me. And I really, really enjoyed it. I think if you're into Santa Claus beating some butts here and there, this is the way to go.
Punish. All right. But yeah, but George and Audrey, what do you think of this one?
It has been a long time since I've seen it, and I would have to revisit it, but I do remember some violence and good kills in it.
See, I remember it pretty well. Robert Culp was in the movie. I was like, I always go back to Greatest American Hero, but he was in Bill Cosby.
I Spy,
yeah. So I mean, it was a good time, and plus also I had already at the time that I watched Santa's Sleigh, I had just got into watching curling, or is it hurling?
Curling.
And I was like, wow, that's a part of the Olympics now. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. You don't have to have, ridiculous physical fitness. Anybody can do it as long as you can just shuffle on those brooms. And
it's fascinating.
It is. It's fascinating. It's something you could drink while you're playing, as long as you have like some slick ice and a bunch of brooms and a stone. I'm like, it was a blast. And the fact that they incorporated that into that movie, I just had a good time. And Goldberg was great in it. It's just like, it's a fun way that it's a fun twist on the Santa story. And what if he was a bad guy? That was cool.
I dig it. Angie, your thoughts on this one?
I'm going to go out on a limb and say I didn't actually see it because
Okay.
I remember hearing about it. Even the artwork seems familiar to me, but listening to you guys talk about it, I'm like, I don't know that I saw that.
Well, you could totally go to YouTube because I know it's everywhere on YouTube. I don't know who owns the rights or doesn't care, but it's free on YouTube all over.
Nice.
Wait, we're gonna move on to number 4. I definitely put a stamp. Everyone needs to check that out. Number 4 in for George is Weir. Is that how we say it?
Yeah.
Weir. George,
Man.
your pick. All you.
It's one of my favorite werewolf movies ever. It stands toe to toe with, even though it's very different, than like Dog Soldiers, but it's easily within my top, probably even 3 werewolf movies of all time. It touches on more of a genetic area of like if lycanthropy was real, it would be the way that I'd imagine it would be. It'd be more of a not genetic. Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah,
like a genetic
like
or chemical
gene.
thing.
Yeah.
And it can be passed through blood. And I'm like, man, and not to give too many spoilers away, which, so, I mean, I think it was 2013 or something like that is whenever it came out. So I don't know where anybody would have been if they haven't seen it in the last 10 years. No judgment on any of you guys that hasn't, but I'm still judging you. But it's just an awesome, and you're treated with a werewolf fight. I'll give you that. And it's a lot of fun. It's cool. The special effects, the practical stuff in there is just awesome. Yeah, it's solid.
Cool. Duke, you happen to see this one?
No, I have seen the werewolf in it though. I've actually seen a couple clips of that, and I'm a big creature feature kind of guy, and I'm with you on that. I agree. Probably one of the best werewolves out there.
Does the wolf get kicked in the nards at all?
I'm trying to think. It's just like possibly because there's some fight scenes.
Yeah.
So.
Angie, did you happen to see this one?
I have not seen this, and I am feeling very judged right now.
Oh, you are.
So let's back up. Now, myself, Duke, and Angie, 2 in a row selections we did not see. I don't feel too bad right now, actually.
No.
All right, moving on to my number 4. This is a film that's been out there. Everybody knows this franchise. I just think it's underrated and doesn't get the respect it deserves. Psycho 3, guys.
All right, good choice.
Let me just go in to say, like, you say horror movie icons, it's Jason, and it's Norman Bates right behind. I love all 4 of these movies as a whole. When you say Psycho, let's face it, everybody thinks of the first movie, and then they think of all the rest. But when Tom Holland had the scare of his life when he had to write the second film's amazing. And I believe that's where people kind of just say, well, that's it, after Tom Holland. I believe Psycho 3 is a perfect flow right from the second movie. It's also one of these franchises where you kind of have to see the previous ones. I tell no one, don't watch the 3rd or 4th because you're going to be like, I don't know what the hell happened. Mm-hmm. You have to backtrack and see everything. But Norman Bates, to me, is just a character because by the time he gets out in the second movie, he is cured. Like, he is a normal, rehabilitated guy, and what they do to him to make him snap is sad. Yeah. And this is a continuation of a guy who just doesn't know how to function. He has to have his mother there at all costs, and his mother's there, but she's not really there. And I really found this movie like sad, funny, because Norman Bates' character is just, I think he's Anthony Perkins in this role the same way I say Tim Curry as Frankenfurter. Their body language is just amazing. The acting that this guy does, the way he twitches his face. I love this. Chloe Webb is in this film as his love interest. I thought she did an amazing job. Jeffrey Faye's in this movie. This is the first time I ever saw him act. This is like the film I saw, but him as Duke. I mean, what an amazingly told story. That's just, nobody talks about this. And I remember growing up, we finally got basically not being poor anymore in my household around when I was 12, and my dad finally got cable where we had a whole 13 stations, but we had cable. But this was on like Channel 11 and Channel 5 in the New York, Philly, PA, Jersey area every 2 seconds. Like every Saturday, this movie was on and with commercials. And I watched it I was just blown away by the story. So with that long introduction of sticking up for this film, Duke, did you happen to see this one?
It's been a long time. I was probably in my teen years at best. But no, I have a lot of respect for it because it, just like you were bringing up, sometimes these franchises, there'll be one that gets lost in the mix, but it really contributed something to where when people look back at the entirety of the work, they go, well, man, like, they'll quote something from it and you'll be like, that's one of the ones that doesn't get talked about a lot. But without it, the franchise wouldn't have bridged or it wouldn't have been complete, So no, I exactly understand your theory on it.
Sweet. And I really almost put that in my last countdown, but I was just like, Audrey, you jumped on this one. So what do you think of this one?
I like Psycho 3. I think, being of a certain age when you're watching these movies, I think you almost get more of a taking it, not literal, but I think you see it through different eyes. And I think maybe when you're at a certain point in your maturity and you're kind of seeing these things and you're like, oh, well, that's kind of fucked up. And now I see why this person is going to do A, B, and C. But then when you've seen the other two movies, even though he had an issue, that he was really trying. He was really trying.
He was trying.
When, if someone got out of jail or prison, they're like, oh, I'm just going to go start doing the same shit I did. I don't care. I'm out. But you really see the effort. And then people are just pushing you to that point when you snap. And it's like, oh, well, and that's another one. You root for him, even though he's wrong and he's trouble, but you do root for him, get that revenge, get these people back for doing that to you. So it's kind of one of those,
be careful what you wish for. Be careful what you wish for, because that's what they were doing in the second movie. Like, be careful. Yeah, you poke the bear one too many times. So yeah. George, you haven't seen this?
This was the one that, like the other films, the first one and the second one, I didn't really feel bad too much for Norman. This is the one I did, because it was the first one that you really felt sorry for Norman. You saw the damage and you rooted for Norman to be okay. And then you hated what was happening with him. And then at the same time you were like, yes, let's bring on the bloodshed, because they deserve it for pushing him where he doesn't need, where he didn't want to go back to, but it's a part of Norman. And unfortunately they ripped open that scar all over again.
There's one thing about this movie, and I have to credit the actress. I don't know who she was, but I hated that reporter so bad. Because she was just there to get her story and poke at Norman, and like, she lives, and it was like, oh God, please! But she got away. She got what she wanted, and she was ruthless about it. And I was just like, I was hoping in the fourth one, but then that was her fourth one was way over here, which I still loved, but had nothing to do with that reporter. Angie, did you happen to see this?
Yeah, absolutely. I love the Psycho franchise, and I think one of the things that does make it stand out from your Jasons and your Michaels is because most people don't actually expect to run into Jason Voorhees walking down the street. But one thing I like about the Psycho franchise and any of the psychological thrillers out there is that is something where you're watching him go through all this stuff, and you realize there are other people in the world who are having traumas. Maybe they're not quite as bad as this, but they're going through trauma, and they have to find a way to work out that trauma. And so this is one of those things where you can look at Norman and you can kind of look around at your neighbors and go, wonder how they're getting through life.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. That's a good analogy. Yeah, I it's definitely Psycho 3 is free on Freevee right now. I know that for sure. I just recently saw it on there. I own them all on DVD, but I don't know, one day I didn't feel like putting the Blu-ray player on. So jumping in our number threes. Angie's number 3 selection is Come Play. Your selection, all you.
All right. So this actually ranks a little higher in my list, which even surprises me a little bit, because this is kind of a cookie cutter type of horror. And as far as the bottom line premise is the monster that's using technology to come through this lonely child and make a connection. And the fact is, from the time that we had technology growing, we have had stories with demons and monsters and everything using that technology against us. So it's kind of borderline across the board as far as the story itself goes.
Cool. I will definitely take a moment and say another slap on my hand. I didn't see this, and I will pass the Duke. Duke. All right, you're getting a slap on your own hand too, and we're gonna go to George and Audrey. Japanese. No,
I know what it is, but I have not seen it. I know what it is. It's on a list. I haven't seen it.
George, you too?
Yeah.
Wow. So completely around the room. Angie, yes.
All right, Angie.
Yeah. I'll just send you a gift certificate for stumping us on that one. All right. Well, then, good selection. I don't know where you can watch this, but please search it up. It sounds unique, something I'll definitely check out. As we jump into Audrey's number 3, pure classic, one we all love. I thought at the beginning this was one of of the Dead series. I thought this was going to be like a Romero, but no. Night of the Creeps.
Yes. And you know what? I just gave you the list. I didn't rank them. So I would say this would probably be my number 2, maybe number 1. But this is okay. So Night of the Creeps, not only does it have, Tom Atkins in it, which is wonderful. I remember the year I was 13 and I got in trouble because I kept answering the phone, Thrill Me. Like, not thinking my mom's going to be calling me from work. I'm thinking it's my friend. So I'm answering the phone, Thrill Me, and I'm getting in trouble. But it's just one of those kind of perfect movies. Night of the Creeps blends the horror, the 50s, alien sci-fi with the modern time. You've got college kids, no teenagers. Great. Sometimes you get sick of seeing teenagers in movies. So, they're a little older. They're college age. You've got, these 2 friends, and I wouldn't say they're losers. They're just not popular, but they have this great friendship. And it just was one of those movies. It's just kind of perfect. I mean, people do
we love Jason Lively.
Jason Lively. Yes. Yep. I mean, it just, it was, I don't know why I love this movie so much, but I just do. And it holds up. I think it's one of those movies, if I watch it in another 10 years from now, in another 20, it always holds up. Some movies I go back, I'm like, oh, I used to love that movie, but it doesn't hold up. No, Night of the Creeps. Oh, and then you've got the advanced sci-fi, the cryogenic thing, the chamber where the guy, that's how it, don't want to spoil that. But I mean, seriously, if people have not watched this, you have to watch this movie.
You have to check this out. And I'll also say, for the stamp what she's saying, I know he's done a million movies. When you say Tom Atkins, this is the first movie I think of. Mm-hmm. I don't. It just is. This is the one. Not Halloween 3 or anything. George, obviously, she's watching it. You're watching it. So your thoughts?
Yeah, for the most part,
we liked it together. It was one of the ones we came into the relationship with. It's like, I'm bringing Night of the Creeps. What do you feel about this?
Yes, exactly. So I mean, honestly, it kind of fit in there. Just some of those really cool worm movies where it's just like the creatures are worms, and it fit in there kind of like, you have great ones that are iconic, like Star Trek 2, worm in the ears, really creepy.
Dune, Tremors, yeah. They're not going in your mouth though. You're going in there.
like Slither is another one. Slither is just like, even though it came much later, but no, this movie was, Night of the Creeps was so 80s.
Duke, your thoughts on this one?
I was 5 when the 80s were over. but a bunch of my friends got together and we kind of had a little club where we would bring in, older films and we would drink and we would watch them. And this was one of those time machine films that I really enjoyed, when you could get something like that would just take you back to something where they didn't have cell phones, you know what I mean, and see it differently. And that's what I appreciated about it the most, is even the artwork that you popped up on the poster. It just absolutely is a time capsule, and you can transport even if you weren't there.
Moving on to Duke's number 3. All right, am I saying this right? Wormwood Road of the Dead.
I'm hoping you're saying it right, because that's how I would say it too.
All right. I'm not the only one. So all the viewers could correct me and put it in the comments. I never claimed to be smart.
Yeah. So this is one I found one time, and it was just in like a resale shop, and I saw it sitting there, and I pulled it off the shelf, and I took it home, and I said, I don't know why nobody's talking about this. I'm a huge Dawn of the Dead fan. I'm sorry, I'm a huge Dawn of the Dead fan too. But you'll get a lot of that kind of zombie action in it. But I'm also a big Mad Max fan, and they put together these cars in this thing, and then they put all this armor together, and there's a lot of live action, a lot of shooting and stuff, and it's just a really interesting zombie film to me. And this was part of that. It was released in February 13th, 2015, so it was right in the middle of the zombie horde of films.
Yeah.
But it's got this very different take, particularly being an Australian company. And it's got a little bit of comedy in it. It's got some disco while one of the scientists is dancing around, manipulating on the zombies. And you've just got this like over-the-top humor, but also this over-the-top Mad Max style action against these zombies. And there really is some great people in this. From what I understand, the critics kind of dug this one pretty well, but the average audience seemed to not dig it very well from what I could see. So that's one of the things I thought was weird. It took, from what I understand, 4 years to complete this film, because they mostly only worked on weekends. So that's another thing that I think is really interesting when you look into this. But they had some great cast. I'm probably going to mess it up, but I think his name's Leon Burchill. He was a character named Benny in it, and he's kind of the right-hand guy in this film. And he has these one-liners throughout it that just crack you up the entire time.
You got my head spinning. 4 years. That means the actors for 4 years had to not change their look at all and try not to age.
Yeah. Now, I'm not connected to this film project in any way, but that's what I read on the interwebs.
Wow, yeah. I'm just trying to think, like, what if you're putting out too much weight? You get like a thyroid problem or something. I would tell everybody to put it in that search engine and see if you could find it and check it out, because this guy here definitely did not see that. Angie, did you happen to see this one?
I did not. I haven't even heard of this one yet.
Well, this is what we have this podcast for. But we all lose out, so it's another universal loser for all of us. All right, so moving on to George's number 3, Blood Creek. All you, sir.
Man, this was awesome. First of all, just to start, this is free on Tubi, unless it went back off, because I mean sometimes they bring them on and then they take things off. They have their like season
pass them around. Yeah. And I absolutely love this one. Honestly, Audrey was the one that turned me on to this. I can't remember if I know we rented this. I just don't know exactly how we watched it, if we hit the video store or what. But
family video.
Yeah, she was immediately just like, holy, it's like we got Henry Cavill and Cavill. I don't know how you ever say it.
Cavill. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like him, Dominic Purcell, and Michael Fassbender. I'm like, just
like 3 heavy hitters.
Yeah, they are.
And it's just like, man,
you got Superman and Magneto in the same movie.
Yes,
exactly. And so, and it's awesome that they later on became, those huge comic book figures. But for this one, for such a low budget horror film, it's the story that really drew me in. It's I'm always a sucker, always have been a sucker for the weird scientific, science that was going on with the Third Reich. I'm like, man, they were doing some weird stuff, and I like the stories that keep coming out. Like, what was the zombie movie that came out not long ago? It was
Outpost or
Overlord.
Overlord. Okay.
Overlord. really cool. Same kind of like, thing, even though this isn't the same aspect. This is more about magic, mysticism, gaining knowledge, that, only the gods were privy to, and dealing with runes. I loved it. They brought it. It's a fun story. It's brutal. It's sick. Yeah, it was it's a shame that I didn't get. I wanted more from that universe after that movie, but I'm happy what we got.
Cool. I will step up and take the booze. I did not see this. Pass the fuck the Duke.
No, I've not seen this one.
You're getting some booze as well. All right, Angie.
Come on, Angie.
Nope, count me out. I didn't
Oh,
Y'all got some homework to do.
yeah, we do.
You're gonna love it. I mean, this is seriously. It's
No,
awesome.
I'm sold on just the actors alone and all that. Like it's
Yeah, and this was like,
sorry.
and this is like early. Like, I mean, I wouldn't say it's too early Lionsgate, because I mean this is like 2008, but still, it was when Lionsgate was really coming out with some heavy hitters. So yeah, I dug that. So
this is why I like this account doing stuff like this, because now I
Yeah.
can write down. How many times have you got in front of the TV and be like, "What should I watch?" And you
Yep.
know there's a million things, but you kind of need something to generate. Like, so now I literally have a list. My number 3, I get a lot of people that say hell yeah, but I get more people that give me pushback. But I'm throwing it out there. Coming in at number 3 for my selection, it's Hellraiser 3. Hell on Earth.
Dun,
All right,
dun,
guys.
dun.
Let
you're
me.
gonna catch some flack right now.
Oh, I'm ready to fight right back here. Let's just really bring up what Clive Barker brought to the horror community with Hellraiser. When you first saw this first flick, you were like, "This isn't the norm. This is a brand new characters. There's tons of rules." You're kind of just frozen, like, okay. Every time this guy talks, you're trying to learn this story and all that. And by the time the movie was done, I was cool with the characters, but I liked the first one. Sorry, dragged. In my eyes, is this bizarre, and it dragged. So when Hellbound came out, I like that even way more. Like, to me, that's like the it one. And I thought it was a great piggyback off the first one. When this film came out, it got attacked so hard I didn't want to watch it. And I watched it. And I was like, this is everything I've been waiting for. We know the rules. We know what's going on. I want to see these Cenobites and everything happening. And when that club scene hit and they're leaving the club and they're just chasing her like hell on earth, I'm like, this is what I've been freaking waiting for. The Cenobites did nothing but just sit behind Pinhead and go, look at me, I'm ugly. Like, freaking do something already. So I dug this. I dug the whole. I dug the hero in this. I liked Doc. I liked all of Hellraiser 3, and I realized people said after this is the one that like broke it and the whole. After this, I don't know. Like, I know there's like 9 Hellraisers. I lost track after this one, but I stick up for Hellraiser 3. Go around the room, George. You swung first. Go for it.
All right. So, in your defense,
Okay.
I will say that it does fit the natural progression of what you would figure the Cenobites would need to go into. They were kind of stuck into the obelisk, and to come on out and to wreak havoc on the world and have hell on earth. It is better than having in the first one, it's isolated in a house. Second one, loved it. I mean, that's so flawless. To happen in that sanitarium. Where you would go from there, I don't know. So I guess that would be the next step. I guess to go into, to take the film into that franchise into that direction. I just wanted them to do more and to handle it more. I wanted more bloodshed. I wanted it to be more of a global thing, and not so
So you
much.
didn't like the club scene? That didn't satisfy an entire club of people getting killed by listening to bad music?
I did like that. I did like that. I wanted more from the Cenobites, as you were mentioning, and I wanted to see some really cool wicked kills, and it didn't deliver as much as I wanted it to. But I did like at least that was the story, I guess, that they went to. Is what
I think Penn had a lot of good lines in that, because I loved, again, when he walked in the club and everybody looks and he shuts the door and he goes, "Shall we dance?" That was just beautiful. It's like, oh, we were, poop's gonna hit the fan, and it did. And I even dug like the club, that lame club owner, JP Monroe, and the girl situation of like, he just pries on you of like, you give me your soul and I'll free you from all your pain. I just thought that was this. I don't know. You're right. I know you're not approving of the film so much, but you had to do something. You just can't be in the house and like. Mm-hmm. I kind of think also after this one, or people could say this one on. Even I get it. I'm not going to argue with you, but I don't know if Pinhead's story had anything more to tell after those first two.
Probably not.
Yeah.
No, I think his area could have ended, and they could have explored the rest of the characters, especially the Leviathan.
But Duke, your thoughts on Hellraiser 3?
It's been so long they kind of run together for me, but I do remember the scene you're talking about in particular, the club scene. And for me, if somebody's handing you a project and you've got to do a third movie, I'd rather somebody swing for the fences. And if you missed and you got a couple of cool scenes out of it, and it bridged something for the rest of that franchise, sometimes I think that's all you can ask out of somebody. And I think that there were definitely points in that film that people would repeat at a party and say, "You got to see this scene. This scene is great." You know what I mean? And to me, that's worthwhile. And yes, I mean, I understand it may not have been a heavy hitter, but I'm with you. Like I completely get why I think it deserves some respect.
Coolness. I like your wording. Thank you. Angie.
I kind of agree with that as well. It is the natural progression, I think, of the storyline. As far as the entirety of the film, it's kind of questionable. But you're right. There are some scenes that, are definitely worth noting.
Coolness. All right. We're going to move on to our number twos. Wow, that was kind of fast. All right. Angie, your number coming in at Angie's selection for number 2. Antlers. All you.
So with Antlers, when it first came out, it was running some trailers, and I was very on the fence with the trailers. I couldn't really determine what it was really going to be about, but Del Toro's attached to it. And so I ultimately went, and very, very happy, because it didn't really, the trailer, once you see the film, the trailers really didn't do it justice at all. It was so much better than the trailers suggested. It is a Wendigo story plot, and I don't really feel like there's enough of those out there, so that's a really good draw for me. I did see a quote out there at one point that said that it was satisfyingly gross folklore horror, and I gotta say that may be like the best description of it that could be out there. One of the other parts of that is the reality, because there is a young school child involved in this, and the teacher gets involved because of the behaviors at school. So I think there's kind of a reality there of what a teacher would actually go through if she's got a child struggling with stuff. She just happens to get sucked into this Wendigo story instead of your maybe basic neglect story that might be out there.
Okay, well, I will step aside for 1 second and say insert booze to me again, because I did not see this one, and I will pass the buck down to Duke again.
I have not seen it, but you're not supposed to say the W word inside your own house, though, Angie. So Have a good time sleeping
You
tonight.
have so many more rules than I have. I can't
You're
keep
not
up.
supposed to say it. I'm telling you, look it up.
All right, Audrey, your number 2 selection is Hounds of Love.
Hounds of Love. So I guess, I could see if there might be some comments where people are like, this isn't straight horror, not in the sense of a slasher or a character. It's more of one of those realistic horror thrillers. It is an Australian film, in which I had like 3 solid Australian films that just were on my list, but I feel like this one was probably the least known. It is somewhat based on real people. It's a lot of killing, a lot of psychological abuse and drama, but it is one of those I don't think that people will easily forget because it is so disturbing. It goes into that realistic horror where you have people in this relationship and they are both doing really messed up things to other people. And one is very passive about it, but yet they still participate. So it goes down a really dark rabbit hole. It's not one of those things you're going to be happy about, or it's just, it's going to take you to a dark spot. But if people have seen The Loved Ones, which is another really twisted Australian horror movie, it's not as perky. It's really dark stuff, but nonetheless, it's rewarding. And you kind of got to take that journey to see how it ends. Because once you start the movie and you see the content and the subject matter, you just want to know what happens next. How does this story resolve itself? So this one may not be for everybody. It is definitely not kid friendly. So, some things you can like, it's a horror movie, kids can watch it. But this one, the subject matter is too adult. But it is really dark and it's pretty twisted. I did this for a podcast review when me and my partner were podcasting, and yeah, that one it was deep. So
gotcha. Well, I have to insert the booze because there's another one I didn't see and check it. I will check in and see if my if Duke has happened to see this one. No. All right, and so another round of booze. Angie, 3 rounds of flatline. So I'm starting to feel better now. All right, so continuing with Duke, I like his theme because he really seems to hate Christmas. So coming in as number 2, yes. Better watch out. All you, sir.
Yeah, so I mean, it's the opposite, But when something gets a little too sweet, you got to temper it down, and that's the thing. I like a little bit of this in my Christmas, but at the end of the day, I don't know why this one isn't everywhere with everybody. It was a $3 million budget. The cinematography on this thing, in my opinion, is so clean and so crisp. The sound design is gorgeous. It's going to put you in that Christmas feel in July. It's got a lot of hairpin turns in it where the plot changes course. The performances of these actors I thought were really great. I'm going to give you one spoiler that I don't think will kill too much, but they test out some of the Home Alone theories for some of the traps from Home Alone. and I thought that was great, There's also, I believe there's a Thing reference in this movie as well. I'm not going to tell people where it's at, but if you watch it and you see a Thing reference in it, I did too. But end of the day, it's just such a well done film that I just, for me, it's like if I want to feel Christmas, I'll put that thing on and it works. You've got Patrick Warburton in it as the mom, and Virginia Madsen as the father, and Virginia Madsen as the mom. And it starts out with them doing some banter and things like that. And I mean, it really gets to me into that feeling, almost like some of the first scenes of Krampus, the most recent one. It's got some of that feel in it, but it's one of those, again, I walk around the conventions and I don't see anything to do with this movie hanging around. And I don't know why it's not on T-shirts and posters and stickers and, so I can't say much else about it. I just think it's a really smoothly written film.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I'm going to keep my boo streak going and see that one either. So, supporting your theory, Duke, I'll try to get on the wagon with this one. Angie, did you happen to see this one?
I don't think I have. I feel like I really need to step up my Christmas horror viewing because it obviously isn't where it needs to be.
You're right, Angie. For that, you're getting boos too. George and Audrey.
Well, that one is a little near and dear to my heart because we were trying to get a screener for that during Horror Hound. It didn't work, but it was like, guys, this movie is awesome. You know, let's get it. It was so good. I reached out to the filmmaker, and he was super sweet and sent me a link and let me see it. And I'm like, we got to show this movie. And not only did it have Patrick Warburton and Virginia Madsen, it had Olivia, and I can't think of her name. So the brother and sister that were in the M. Night Shyamalan movie where they go visit the grandparents.
Yeah.
Olivia DeJonge.
The
Visit, I think. The Visit.
Yeah,
So they play brother and sister in that movie, and in this movie they play babysitter and he's the best friend of the main character.
Yeah.
And it also had Dacre Montgomery from Power Rangers and Stranger Things. So it's like this movie is gonna be hot, and it was such a good movie. Not so many twists, but it was just one of those smartly written horror thrillers because there's a mystery to it and there's some sketchy stuff going on, and it's just so well written and indicative of teenagers, and more so modern teenagers, because of the way they are now and the things that they do and the things that they know, which I believe is very different from us as teenagers. So it worked. Overall, it was just, I was waiting for a sequel. I could see a sequel. I mean, not that it was like a perfect setup. Hey, we're going to do this, but it was like, okay, what happens next at the end? Because there definitely was that, space left open. But it's fun. It's witty, well performed. I think it's another sleeper that I think if you watch it, it's going to be one that you're going to want to watch again. It holds up. You can literally watch that movie again and you're like going to hear and see some things differently than you saw the last time.
George?
Yeah, it's so difficult to talk about this movie because if you do, you're going to ruin it.
Awesome. Well, definitely check that out. And we will jump into George's number 2 with The Borrowers.
Nice.
The Borrowers was... It's Americana. It's set in the 1800s, the late 1800s. So you're having a lot of the Native Americans out west. It's in the Dakotas, is the setting, and you're dealing with how things are in the U.S. at that time with Native Americans and the Americans here that have settled here. The issues that are happening between the two, and you got these creatures, and it's some of the coolest creatures. They're all practical, and it's how they did the creatures is the most interesting part, and the performers, because it's people in suits, but they made them not look humanoid, if that makes any sense. Kind of like the Dark Crystal, whenever they had the people on the stilts being I'm a horrible nerd fan right now. The Wind Riders, was that what they were called? But it's just like they have stilts on the performers' arms and legs whenever they're on these. I think they were Wind Riders, but it's what the Gelflings would be riding on. Were these little creatures, or not little creatures, they were big. It's kind of like their version of horses in the Dark Crystal. But anyway, it's like that by the way that they made something that they made people look not like people with the costuming with these creatures. It was just awesome. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to have to take another repeated boo and say that's one.
Now, it is free on a Tubi. So check it out. Yeah.
Awesome. Duke?
Oh, I love The Borrowers. I've seen this one.
Nice.
What was the guy's name from Lost that was in that?
William Mapother?
Yes.
Right. And then it's Russell as the lead, right?
Clancy Brown is in it. I think he. I'm trying to remember Russell.
Is Kurt Russell not the lead for that one?
No. He's not in the movie. No. It's
Oh, never mind. You know what I was thinking about? I was thinking of Bone Tomahawk. I was thinking of Bone Tomahawk. But I have seen the Burrowers too, because he takes the kid with him, right? Like the mom's all like, "You gotta take the kid," and then yeah. Now I remember that one. I'm sorry, I was going two places. I love my westerns too, and I love them when they're mixed with horror. But I do remember
that one. I do remember.
Yeah, I do remember that one as well, and I do remember that scene in particular where, I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but yeah, it was a really cool take on kind of like a paranormal mixed in with pioneer tension, and it was very different. Like, I can't think of anything. I mean, Bone Tomahawk would probably be the closest, but I really can't think of anything that tackles the genre in that particular thing. So yeah, no, that was a cool one.
But we're jumping into my number two. My number two, I'm pretty sure all 5 of you saw, but for horror fans, like I said, was it underrated? I really could go heavy bat for this one. I did not understand why this is not. Why it didn't do good at the box office. We'll get to that in a second, compared to how it's not held up. But it's a film we all know, and I hold it so freaking high. Land of the Dead. Yeah, guys, we're talking about the guy that made the flesh-eating zombie. And we have The Walking Dead and World War Z and this and that. And when Zack Snyder did the reinventive of, I hated it, by the way, and I like Zack Snyder movies. I just did not like that. I thought it went way off the rails. But when zombies basically came back at the early 2000s and we wanted to see them again, The King came back. And it's like the 4th installment from this. The guy that made it back in, the black and white film where they're all attacking a house. Then they go to a mall. Then they're fighting underground. And I'm like, I loved where he took this story. I just did. I love the whole idea of all this. I like the idea of the zombies getting a little bit more smarter. I didn't like it. I didn't like the sympathy part. I'll be honest with you. I didn't like that part. But this story is just so strong. I like the whole characters. I like that there was like kind of an end game place, even though it didn't kind of last in the end. But I just think this is a strong story, and I don't understand why this doesn't hold up. I dug the whole idea of Dead Reckoning. I mean, you had Dennis Hopper in this film, for God's sakes. I mean, you had great actors straight around the boards in this, and it's like that film that just nobody talks about, or they give it a lot of shit. Like, so, Duke, starting with you, what are your thoughts on Land of the Dead?
So yeah, that was one of those I didn't know was underrated, and I'm not saying it isn't. I went to theaters with my mom and saw that. I love John Leguizamo in it. I love that they were popping the fireworks off of Dead Reckoning, and I've got that sitting on my shelf right next to the Dawn of the Dead and a bunch of others. So to me, I've always liked it. I've really liked it. But now that I know that other people don't, I'm going to start pushing it out there.
I just totally feel this film is like, when you say that the Romeros, you think of the original 3, like they're just held so high. But this seems like, if you want to say where it went off the rails, it's after this film when, like, Survival of the Dead. I'm like, oh God, Diary. I was like, all right, but I love you and all, but I'm tight with his son, but no. But Angie, did you happen to see this film?
All right, I'm very ashamed right now because I will say Dawn of the Dead was my first horror ever, and so I feel very ashamed of myself that I've not even heard of this one, much less seen it. I'm not really sure what has happened here.
Okay. And this should not be hard to find on your TV. Like, it's got to be somewhere. Yeah. So
that's got to be a priority now.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, you're still getting a boo. George, your thoughts on this film?
I liked it and I didn't like it. The things that I did like about it is that it tried something new with making the dead intelligent. And prior to this movie, I liked a lot of comic books, actually, just right over there, I have like a short box, and I believe I have all of the Dead Worlds. And it reminded me of the Dead World books, where the dead, they started gaining intelligence. Now, as much as that seems a little silly, because you're like thinking, well, wait a minute, they're decomposing. Why would they gain intelligence? I don't know. I still think that the genre has to go somewhere instead of just, these mindless hordes of zombies. So it's interesting to add that aspect to it. So that's what I did like about it, is, you're seeing that they're becoming more intelligent. They're figuring things out. I mean, you did even in Day, but was it Day or Dawn?
No, you're right, Day, with that Bebop, whatever his name was. And
Yeah. So with Land, you're seeing it even more, and it's just like, okay, it's just like I'm digging this, because you could see where already it's just like, okay, this is a definite direction that they're going into. Even recently, there was the movie with the zombies that Dave Bautista was in. We watched it.
Oh God, that's supposed to be a sequel to Dawn of the Dead, and me, it had absolutely no.
Right. So I mean,
it was filmed in Atlantic City, which is by me, but it's supposed to be Vegas. Like,
it didn't pan out too well, but it
a lot of
does.
plot holes. A lot of plot holes.
Definitely. Like, it does lend into the interesting thing is if the dead formed these communities and they became more intelligent, and I did think it's just like, all right, you got to do something with it, or it's just the whole genre is gonna be bland. So I get it. So that's the thing that I kind of did like about it. Just some of the aspects of the execution, I was just like,
I'm kind of like on the opposite side of what you just said, as far as that part of the story of like, they were getting some of them were getting sympathetic towards them, and I'm like, I get that if you want to say that, but they're trying to eat you, and you're never going to get your planet back. I always said that The Walking Dead, like, everyone you see that you could take out, this is the only way to end it, and to prolong you and whoever your crew is going to be. You have to kill every single one of these things. And so that was the one part, like at the end when they had a chance to kill the main one. He's like, no, he's just searching. I'm like, there is no place to go until you cleanse the world of this. So that's the only part. But I just dug the whole idea again. And like, George, do you feel this movie's lost, or is it just in my head?
No, I think it's at least entertaining. I don't think it would be one to where I think a lot of folks would go back to and check out. It's worth watching. I think every single person should go and check out Land and take it in for what it was. It, similar to you, it's definitely your flavor, and I think to some other folks, they may watch it and just say, I kind of didn't like this route that they took it in. And
we're gonna jump into the last here, so we're in our number ones. Angie coming at her number one, and I highly agree. My boost streak is over. Don't Breathe.
Yeah.
All you, kiddo.
All right, so this brings us back where I mentioned before that this is actually starts out pretty similar to Bad Samaritan as far as it being a home invasion type story.
Right.
And this is one where you're definitely rooting for who you believe is the underdog in this, because you have these thieves that go in to where they think is going to be an easy mark, and then their world gets totally turned upside down, because not only is he not an easy mark, he's a lot tougher. He fights back more than they ever imagined that he would. But then they stumble across the reason why he wants them gone so badly. This was just written really well. And I think it was the acting was really well on this as well. Even though I think it's been compared heavily to People Under the Stairs, I think they just did so much better job in the execution.
I'm with you on this. I totally dug this character like a lot. Like he's a great actor, and this was definitely a different story. And what I really like about this is I think the second one gets overlooked, but I like how, yeah, it's a continuance, but now he's the good guy. Well, even though he's a bad person, but like it's flipped that he's actually the good. Now you're rooting for a crazy old war veteran. You know,
Right.
he went into, you came into my house, you ain't leaving from the first one to, yeah, all right. Yeah, you messed with the one thing. I actually tried to become a good person. You tried taking her away from me. We've got a problem. So, George Audrey.
I really like Don't Breathe. Again, good performances. You kind of are like, hey, these people got it coming. You just broke into someone's house, you know. But I think he is so scary because you're not on the same playing ground. If you're in the total darkness in a house with someone that's blind and it's their house, they know where everything is. They know where every sound is. They know where you step and it creaks. They know exactly where you are in that house. So I love that aspect of it. And yes, it was creepy. He was not a good guy, but in turn, you know, when people do stupid things, they win stupid prizes. So, you know, I don't know what they thought the outcome was going to be, you know, but it was not good. Another solid performance from Jane Levy, Shiloh Fernandez, and now.
Yeah, that veteran aspect, it's just like, yeah, he already had way too much tools, you know, at his disposal just for his training. And then losing his eyes on top of that, it almost didn't seem like anything for him. It was just another challenge for him to go through. He was still a bad guy, but he was a sympathetic bad guy. I didn't want to root for him because he was, you know, such a villain in the first film. But I loved it. You know, you were trapped in this house, and that isolation, that darkness.
You brought the fire to his doorstep that he wasn't asking.
Yeah,
exactly. So
you stepped into his world, and he was ready. He's always been ready. Another film we actually all saw. No booze this round. All right, Andre, we're going to go with your number one, which I have an agreement with, probably because I love the lead actress like a lot.
You're like a lot. Okay,
House of Wax.
Here's the thing about House of Wax. Okay, so even though it's similar, I wouldn't say it's a full over remake. It's a reimagining, but I tend to not like remakes. I tend to think they're lazy. I tend to think they don't go outside the box. But with this one, man, that story was so good. So good. And it kind of, there's a lot of elements going on in this. First, you got your typical young adults, you know, going to do whatever, and they get a little careless. They don't think, they don't pay attention. Things are right there in their face and they're not looking. But you also have that piece of middle America, of dying towns. And you can take the Wax Museum out and put it, replace that with like a big industry, like cars, you know, the plants and things like that. They literally killed a whole town. And so, you know, there's all these remnants there. And then you get people that are imposing on their area. For a remake, it did use the idea of the House of Wax and just kind of really made it dark. They made it scary. I was really impressed with Paris Hilton. She actually did a really good job. I wasn't expecting that. The brutality of the killer. There's a scene that's going to get everybody that watches it. It was so petty. And I think I really kind of liked the bad guy when he did it. You know, I'm just going to say there's a hand and there's some fingers and you just got to see it. But it was just a nice reimagining. It was brutal. it was just a good story, and I really enjoyed it. And I think that it gets a lot of flack because maybe it didn't have, I mean, I don't know. I guess people get caught up on certain things with cast and well, it needed to be this type of person, or it should have been that type of person, or this person wasn't good enough looking. This person was this. No, it was just a ragtag group of friends, a brother and sister and their friends, boyfriends, relationships, all that stuff. But I don't know why it catches that it doesn't have that respect, because in the end, it was really a good, solid story. I didn't expect to be impressed by it, and I really enjoyed it. Nice.
Duke, your thoughts on this one?
I'm a huge Jared Padalecki fan, so I love that he was in it. I love the muscle car, the whole he didn't want to leave his baby thing. I thought it was a perfect use of Paris Hilton. I remember seeing this as kind of summer blockbuster style, and everybody was, like you knew who she was. Some people thought she was cool. Some people thought she was annoying. I don't think any of us expected her to do the scene she did at the end. Yep. I think that was a shocker that everyone's like, wow, they did that, And then there was the scissor scene, if you remember what I'm talking about. And I can still picture that like it was yesterday. So it's honestly like one of my like teenage like top movies that if I want to watch something that brings me back to high school, that's the one. That's one of them. So I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Sweet. Angie?
Yeah, I'm generally right along those same lines. I'm it's been a while since I've seen it, but it's all coming flooding back to me now, and so when we were coming up with these top 5, it wasn't even on my radar, and now I'm rethinking, and I'm like, that was really good. So
we could have all easily had a top 20, top 50 if we really wanted to. But we'd be here till Friday. We'll go to Duke's number 1 with Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. The floor is yours.
All right. I'll promote the case for it. It's a hard R rating. I'll lay it out the way I see it. It was director Jeff Burr, producer Robert Engelman. The theater release was January 12th, 1990. It brought in about 5.5 million, a little bit more, a little bit less. You got a young Viggo Mortensen in this. You've got a young Ken Foree that I think do well. On one of the bigger sites there for critics, it's a 13%, and the audience rating is a 31%. So keeping it pretty low. One of the prominent critics called it deja vu, which here's where I'll give it. Most of these films I had to watch when I was older and then watch them back, and we would just crunch them all at one time. But if I was taking my hard-earned money and I'm going to sit down in a theater and I want to see me some TCM, this film I would not have walked away and been like, man, I just wasted my $14. I would have been happy with it. And one of the reasons is you get the golden chainsaw, which I think is great. I know I don't want it in every film, but I thought it was cool in this one film. And when you put the Sully's family on the bar of that chainsaw, there's not one movie that didn't use that after that. So this is one of those that I feel like no matter what people want to say, it bridged it. It gave some people down the road work. It kept interest in it. It's a solid worker. And I think that nobody would be disappointed, particularly 4 or 5 years after it came out. I think you'd be satisfied with what you got,
Cool. That's cool. You like it. I'll leave it at. I wasn't a fan of this. I do remember this falls under for me what I said about Michael Myers in those last 3 films. And Hellraiser. Sometimes I just think these characters have gone as far as they could. So when you say Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I think of the first and the second film, and when I got to here, I was like, okay. That's always basically all I'm saying. Okay, I kind of think it's over now, but that's cool. You like it. I mean, it's just for me. No, Angie.
Well, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is my favorite franchise. And Leatherface is my favorite bad guy. So, yes, I saw it. Yes, I loved it. And that's one of those things for me. I'm going to get behind it, even if it's got the most flaws. So it's hard for me to judge one way or the other.
You're a fan, and that's good.
I'm going to just say it's great. Everybody should see it.
Coolness. George, Audrey?
I'll go first. All right. So I don't remember much of it. And I think the reason why is because from when I remember watching it, I remember just not liking it. And I didn't finish it, at least off of the first time I watched it. And then I remember I went back and I watched a little bit of, I watched the rest of it, but I can't remember. The thing that's strange that sticks in my head the most is I still remember growing up because they played the trailer for it constantly. And now I love the trailer. Just like the Lady of the Lake and then the chainsaw.
What's flying out,
yeah, that was a cool trailer to market it. That being said, that's the thing that I remember about it most outside of whenever I finally did watch it.
All right, so moving on to George's number 1 with Splinter.
Very nice.
Go for it.
All right, so Splinter, you can watch that on they say it's on YouTube for free, which I'm like, that's cool. I can't imagine it being on YouTube. Pluto, Tubi, Peacock, Redbox, Vudu, Plex, all those for free, I suppose. I haven't ended up checking to confirm, but that's what as I'm looking it up and checking it out. Man, I like horror. Like it's a parasitical horror. Like it was tough between this and one of my other favorites is The Ruins. I'm like,
I had that on my list and I had to cross it off.
Yeah, well, that was on my list too, and I was just like, all right, I got to pick one, and so it had to be Splinter. It's really creepy, body parasite horror, brutal. It's just scary as all get out, and it's just like, you're always worried, can you get some kind of a parasite? It fit in with that, and the level of gore that's in it, and is just awesome.
Cool. I have to insert the boo and say, did not see this one and go to
Oh, Lord, say it ain't so.
Sorry. Duke, how about you?
I never saw it. Body horror is something that I will watch if I have to, but it's not my main thing.
Duke and I are mirrored with equal boos a lot of times.
Yeah.
How about you, Angie?
Come on, Angie.
Bring the boo. Parasitic. It sounds interesting, but parasitic horror is not something that makes me want to sleep at night. So, but I'll take a boo for this one.
Wow, we're down to the final one. So coming in my number 1, I don't think anyone saw this one coming. D. Snyder's Strangeland.
Did not see that coming.
Yeah. All right, so let me just back up here and say I've always, my entire life, loved Twisted Sister, and I've always dug who D. Snyder is as a person, of a guy who was like in a band for 9 years, dressed up as a girl with the rest of the band. They're from Long Island. They literally took 9 years for them to be famous and were walking around dressed up like girls. So there was fist fights every night. I dig also that the guy is drug-free. I dig the guy that could have done the drug, sex, and rock and roll. He's been married the entire time and takes his wife on tour. He doesn't sleep around. I really hold D. Snyder as a person high. And so when he said he was going to do a movie, I was like, I'm going to go check it out. Yeah. And I was, especially for the time, I mean, the movie's a little dated, but I dug this movie a lot. At the time, tribal was everywhere. Everyone was getting tribal band tattoos. Now I kind of laugh at his look in the movie because I made fun of the tribal band tattoos in my movie The Dark Military. I was like, I use my own movies to attack what I think is lame, but really, the dude always had talked about Captain Howdy and the Twisted Sister. They have a song called Captain Howdy and all that. And really, the character's placed on someone who's exploring with death and Satan and all that. And he's a slasher. He's kind of a little bit of a Freddy Krueger in him. He's killing children, and the town catches up with the guy, gets him locked up, and he actually goes away. And kind of a little bit like Psycho, they fix the guy. He comes out a Bible thumper, and when he tries to go back in society, well, the town's not going to forget what he did, and they're poking at the bear, and they reawaken him after he was cured. And it starts all over again. So this is a really cool story. I dug this character. I actually really thought there was going to be more of these. I did. I thought D was going to, but I don't know, for whatever reason, he didn't. He never went back to it. I don't know if he couldn't get funding or whatever, but there was also the Strangeland tour. So this was the first time I saw not Twisted Sister, but there was an actual tour for this where Dee Snider played Twisted Sister songs. It had like Incubus before they were famous, and Head PE before they were. I don't care about those bands at all, for the record, but I saw all these bands before they were, got more famous. So the soundtrack did pretty good too. But I definitely recommend that one. That this was always. I still have it on DVD and everything. But Duke, did you happen to see this?
I have seen it. I think I was a freshman in college, and it was like it was not a new movie at that point. The video store I went to back then had that, like, you paid $5 a month and you could get like 10 things for a dime a piece. And I was one of those, and I remember getting like halfway through it and then just being like, nah. And I took it out and put something else in. And then a couple of years later, watching a Twisted Sister video or something, being like, wait a minute, that's the guy. So I'm a big Dee Snider fan now. I want to go back and watch that movie, but particularly his story with Adam Green and things like that. I've always liked Twisted Sister, but I do admire him also as a human being. I'd like to see it. It was just so weird to me when I saw it the first time, but I wasn't as acclimated to it now as I would be now. So definitely go check it out in the future.
Definitely check it out. I don't know where to see it, but I gonna guarantee if anybody just searches on their TV, it's got to be somewhere. This is not like a forgotten about movie at all.
Yeah.
So, Angie, did you happen to see this?
I was a huge Twisted Sister fan back in the day, and somehow I did not manage to see this.
Okay, but you're getting booze for that one. And the SMF family is going to be upset with you if you're a Twisted Sister fan, right?
That's right.
Poser.
George, Audrey, your thoughts on this one?
I've seen it a couple of times. I know it's not been. I mean, it's been maybe several years since we came across it or something. It's been
about 7 or 8 years since we watched it, but
I think I'm indifferent at this point because I know I've seen it a couple of times, but I don't know
if it's fresh in your head. Yeah, it's not fresh in your head.
Yeah. I don't remember hating it, and I don't remember loving it either. I think I was just like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. And there's some stuff like that, but I would definitely be willing to give that a try again because almost every time we've seen it, like in the latter years, it's been in the middle of it, or if it's been already on or something like that. But I would give it a try again. I do remember that there were some very cool elements in there for sure.
Well, I mean, he fit that era whenever it came on out. Everybody was always scared of the person that was all tatted up and pierced all up and
like 97, 98-ish. Yeah,
they had the crazy hair, and you're like, that person's not
and
right.
He's like 6'3" and he's still in shape, but like when you saw him in no shirt, you're like, damn, that's the guy that could kick your ass, like clearly.
And it's just kind of like, you knew that dude's seen some action and stuff a bit, so it's the character alone was just awesome. And I think that really sold the movie for me. Is it was a fun character, and it is dated, but I think growing up and experiencing that time, I like to go back to it as often as possible.
It's cool. But we are done with our countdown. So there was a lot of booze and a lot of 20 selections that were not repeats. So you saw the posters as we go up. So anyone checking this out, I hope you write the list down. If not, hit rewind and get the list back. But you all have some movies to watch, especially me. So I will thank this audience for taking the time to watch Average Superstar TV. We drop a new episode every Monday. At this time, you guys all run the Days of the Dead Film Festival. So any plugs, any events, the floor is yours.
Yes. Actually, oh my gosh, we've got so much going on this year.
Sell it.
Yeah. We've already done this year. We've done Atlanta and Vegas, and we have upcoming shows in Chicago in May, Indianapolis in June, August in LA, Houston in September, and we hit Chicago again in November, so we're going to be super busy. We are doing, we're still in the midst of our open submissions right now. And, send your movies in. We love to see them. And we are so excited to be screening films in 2 cities each cycle. So filmmakers, send your stuff in, and we can't wait to see you guys at the convention. We've got a lot of great guests, and, we're looking forward to seeing you.
Yeah, you can submit your films on Film Freeway. Just look us up for Days of the Dead Film Festival. And submit with us. It's not just films, it's not just feature films and short films, but also screenplays.
And a music video contest. Oh my gosh, send those submissions in. Love it.
Hells yes. All right. Well, there it is, folks. Check out the Days of the Dead Convention and Film Festival, and definitely check out these 20 films. They're underrated films, and add that to your list. Everybody's got a watch list. And
Lauren, thank you so much for having us, man. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. I love having you guys on. We'll have to do this again another time.
Absolutely.
I'll shamelessly plug my film, The Dark Military, is for free on Plex, Tubi, and Zumo right now. So that's another one you guys could add to your list. And with that, I will ask everybody, please hit that subscribe button on YouTube. And I will say my final words, as I always say, the show is over. This party's over. I'll see you next week.